people have woken up one day with a bad case of the flu? I would assume that most of us have gotten the flu before and have just had to stay home to recover. This is the smart decision most of the time, but you never know if it could be something more than the flu. Many times other illnesses present themselves in the same way as the flu but are actually much more dangerous. Individuals who value their health and their children's health tend to care about getting vaccinated. Today in this speech, I will first be talking about the problem with meningococcal disease and what it can lead to. Secondly, I will be discussing the Bisectro vaccine as the solution. First, I will be talking about and explaining meningococcal disease and how it affects us. Meningococcal disease is a serious bacterial illness that can cause meningitis and other bloodstream infections or sepsis. In most cases, it is the cause for meningitis. Meningitis is a potentially life-threatening infection of the meninges, or the tough outer layer of the tissue surrounding the brain and spinal cord, says Davis, a healthcare professional for eMedicine.com in September of 2019. Each year, meningococcal disease affects 310,000 people worldwide, according to the U.S. Center for Disease Control, or the CDC. Approximately 2,600 people in the United States get meningococcal disease each year, says the authors at neuroscienceforkids.com. Between 10 to 15% of the people who develop the disease will die. As for the survivors, 15% of the people will have lingering symptoms such as deafness, seizure, or stroke. So clearly this is a deadly infection that affects many people each year and takes many lives. This is a global issue, but people who are located in the regions of Sub-Saharan Africa from Senegal to Ethiopia are at higher risk than the rest of the world. This is due to their living conditions and the environment around them. Third world countries and other places that are hindered by not having access to medical supplies and cleaning agents are at much higher risk of contracting and spreading the disease. However, all areas of the world battle with the disease each year and lose many lives. This is a visual aid of the meningitis belt in Africa that is in Ethiopia. It's called the meningitis belt because it has the most deaths each year due to meningitis in the whole world. Next, children are the most affected by the disease, and the death rates severely spike. According to the National Organization for Rare Disorders, or NORD, about 70% of all bacterial meningitis occurs in children aged 5 and under. Children under age 2 are at the highest risk for infection. Men are also at higher risk of contracting the disease. Once a person contracts meningitis, they have a higher chance of developing pneumonia. Which adults contract meningitis, it can also often lead to a fatal case of pneumonia. However, this also affects children. Each year, approximately 1,400 cases of adolescent pneumonia meningitis are diagnosed to children under age 5 in U.S. alone. Thousands of children die in the U.S. every year from meningitis or complications from the infection. If you are lucky enough to survive a battle with meningitis, you could be left with life-changing symptoms. For example, permanent brain damage, amputation of limbs, hearing loss, cerebral palsy, depression are just some of the possible side effects you could be left to deal with. These effects can last a lifetime and most of the time are irreversible. Next, I will be talking about the solutions to meningitis, and this is Bisectro, the vaccine. Thankfully, there is something to prevent the contraction of meningitis. Bisectro is a vaccine for meningococcal group B disease. This vaccine was created to prevent meningococcal and other diseases like meningitis that stem from meningococcal disease. Vaccinations are essential because they help provide immunity to children before they come into contact with it. They also help to spread even in adulthood. Once this vaccination hit the market, the number of people affected by meningitis in the United States and all other countries where the vaccine is available went down drastically. According to the authors at ComeOnMeningitis.org, around 15% of patients are left with serious impairments that require ongoing support. This means lifelong treatment and losing independence. People lose the ability to even breathe for themselves or walk in extreme cases. No vaccine goes without its risks or possible side effects, of course. Bisectro, of course, has some possible risks and side effects, but they are much lower than the other vaccines out there that are also available for meningitis. Some possible risks and side effects of Bisectro are fatigue, nausea, headache, and fever. While these side effects aren't common, you still have to know that they are a possibility before you take this kind of medicine. I will now be showing the difference between Bisectro and another similar vaccine called Menevo. This data demonstrates safety profiles of more than 3,000 patients across 4 clinical trials. As you can see, in every category, including fatigue, nausea, headache, and fever, with the number of trials, Bisectro was always a severely lower percent than the other vaccine in trial, which proves its effectiveness and the less chance of it being a dangerous side effect on you versus if you take other similar vaccines for the same thing. So today I talked about a big problem, which is meningococcal disease and also meningitis. Then I presented to you the best solution to prevent the disease, which is the Bisectro vaccine. So individuals who value their health and their children's health tend to get vaccines to prevent illnesses such as meningococcal disease and meningitis. So if you aren't vaccinated for meningitis with the Bisectro vaccine, I strongly urge you to. The same goes for your children or your future children, because if you don't, you're putting yourself and others at risk of contracting meningitis, and it can change a life forever within hours, or worse, even take a life. I urge you to ask a doctor if you've been vaccinated for meningitis, and if not, get vaccinated immediately. Most of the time, vaccinations are covered by insurance and are strongly encouraged.